you make sure they say their name when they go to the mic? Mention that to them?
Oh, when they come to the microphone. Yeah. Okay. I'd like to call the public meeting to order. And first of all, thanks everybody for coming out tonight and showing our support for our Memorial Hospital. We are glad to see, and I got to make this comment on Dr. Dysart. He was right on time. The doctor was on time tonight, and I'm glad to see that. So thank you for that. We were asked, ladies and gentlemen, to form a public meeting and a chance for the public to come out and show support for their hospital. We have done that tonight. We have a good crowd, and I think that it shows us that there's a great deal of support. We've asked Dr. Dysart to make a presentation to you people and the public. We don't know any more about the hospital and the future of our hospital than you people probably sitting here. So tonight we want to hear people from a presentation from Dr. Dysart. The whole proceeding is being recorded, voice recorded. After the presentation and after Dr. Dysart gets done, there will be an open mic for people to come up and address the public and give support for the hospital. So without further ado, I think that's, what's that? Oh, yes, forgot about Bernie. MV Bernie LeBlanc is with us tonight, and welcome Bernie. And I don't know if anybody else is coming or not, but we will proceed. Dr. Dysart, you can have the podium. One other thing before he starts. When it's open mic and you come to the microphone, please state your name, please, so we can have it for the recording. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Town Council, for inviting me to speak. I'm glad to be here. I'm intimidated to be here. I'm used to, in my job, I tend to make a fool of myself on a one-to-one basis with people, so this is a nice opportunity to expand my repertoire. I actually wasn't nervous until this afternoon. I came by and Phil wanted to make sure that my PowerPoint would work on this computer, and I saw all the chairs, and I almost passed out, but so I told my wife, Lise is here somewhere here tonight, I said, I'm a little nervous, this is going to be bigger than I expected. And she said, look, just don't rub your head, because I tend to do this when I'm nervous or when I'm thinking about something. So if I do that, just do that. Don't say anything, just point, and then I'll notice that I'm doing it and I'll stop, hopefully before Lise sees it. So it's going to be difficult, I think, for everyone to see the screens, and I apologize about that. But anyhow, we'll have to make do, and if I speak too fast, I apologize in advance. Can people hear? Oh, I'm sorry. Right, I'm sorry about that. My name's Allison Dysart. I didn't grow up in Sackville. I'm from Moncton, but I've been in Sackville since 1997 full time. So really, I've lived here longer than anywhere else in my life, and I do consider it my home. The reason that we are here tonight has been because of uncertainty over the future of the hospital. And if you notice, this is the newspaper, the Times and Transcript from January 11th. And if you look over on the right side of that front page, the headline was 6 to 10 hospitals could be closed, Grits say. So that was the government saying that, we might have to start closing some small hospitals to save money. And this was part of the government's choices that were made to New Brunswickers back, I believe, Mr. LeBlanc would know better than me, was October or perhaps November when it was laid out. We've got some hard choices to make. We're going to have to cut something, whether it's health or education or various other choices that were made. So obviously those of us who work in small hospitals in New Brunswick were a little concerned to hear this. And certainly when that newspaper headline came out, that was obviously quite concerning to us. There aren't that many small hospitals in New Brunswick. If 6 to 10 are going to be closing, there's a pretty good chance Sackville's going to be one of them. Let me just see if I can figure out how to use the PowerPoint here. This picture is Mr. John McGarry, who is the CEO of Horizon Health Network. Horizon is the rather large organization of which we in Sackville are a part of, and he's the guy in charge, and he's a very bright, smart, capable man. Last month, he wrote a commentary which was published in some newspapers in New Brunswick and is also available on the Horizon website if you go there and take a look at it. And what he was laying out was his vision of how Horizon can meet its budgetary challenges. And those challenges are tough. They have a hard bunch of decisions to make, and I don't envy them their jobs. However, one of the things that he advocated strongly was the idea that we have to close, or his term was repurpose, small hospitals in this province, which struck me as sort of Orwellian, that term. But nevertheless, that one of the big things was going to be repurposing small hospitals and also creating centers of excellence in some of the larger hospitals, which I think sounds great. But the repurposing of small hospitals certainly raised some alarm bells for those of us who work in small hospitals. So, there we go. So, repurposing the Sackville Memorial Hospital, and the first question that we all had was, well, what does that really mean? It kind of suggests... Can't hear anything. I'm not sure if I yell louder, it might be terrifying. Stop it! I should have known. It's going bad already. Well, I'm sorry. I'll try. I'll do my best. I'm sorry. Get closer to the mic, okay? Sorry. I feel like I might start singing. So, repurposing the Sackville Memorial Hospital, this is what I did actually speak to Mr. McGarry. I have the opportunity to speak to him because I am, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm on this committee called the Regional Medical Advisory Committee, which is kind of the senior level of medical decision-making within Horizon. And so I'm fortunate that he attends those meetings, and I was able to ask him, what does repurposing the Sackville Memorial Hospital mean? So this is what it means. Number one, no more acute care beds. All the beds are long-term care patients, which means every inpatient at the Sackville Memorial Hospital would be a person waiting for a nursing home or some sort of level of assisted care living. So if you have a pneumonia, you won't be in Sackville. Number two, the emergency room status was unclear, so the possibilities were either no emergency room functioning or else reduced hours. And in an email I received from Mr. McGarry, I believe it was yesterday, his vision had been reducing hours from 24/7 to 16 hours per day, which is perhaps not ideal. At least it was less perhaps bad for us than complete closure would be, of course. So, but we were still quite concerned about this. What that would mean would be overnight there would be no functioning emergency room in Sackville, which can be worrisome. One of the things those of us who work in emergency know is that when we hear on the radio that the paramedics are bringing in a patient from Port Elgin or from Cape Tormentine and they're doing CPR on the way, that patient's not going to live. You just don't, unless it's a rare hypothermic child, those patients don't live. You don't live for 35 or 40 minutes with CPR being done. It's just the reality. It's terrible, but it's true. So if you don't have an emergency room here, if you're being transported to Moncton, I mean, it is what it is. So those are concerns for us. But again, the big question was, what really would be happening? We didn't know. So it wasn't as if it was sort of like, well, here's our proposal, let's come and talk to the town and see what town people think. It's not like that. That's not how it works anymore. These decisions are made, and then they're told to us, and then it's a fait accompli. That's it. It's done, which is worrisome for us. So if you needed urgent care, let's say worst case scenario, the emergency room is completely gone. These are your choices. You go to Amherst, to the ER there. If you're a low acuity patient, which means you're not clutching your chest, or have other really worrisome signs, which is what most of the patients we see are, you can expect a 4 to 8 hour wait. Now, if you are really sick, you will be seen right away, and they'll do a very good job. The Amherst emergency room is very good. Great docs, good people. Another choice would be you go to Moncton. Again, fantastic emergency rooms, terrific doctors and nurses. Unless you're really sick, if you have a low acuity problem, 6 to 10 hours wait, if not longer. I used to work at the Moncton Hospital emergency room, and I would see people who'd been there for 12 hours, and to try to tell somebody who's been there for 12 hours that you have a cold, I'm sorry, you don't need an antibiotic, is a pretty hard sell. It's really, yes, whatever antibiotic you would like, you deserve it. You've waited this long. If the emergency room was closed, I don't want to try to sound like Chicken Little. There's a possibility, who knows, perhaps an after-hours clinic would be created. So I'm not trying to be misleading. I'm not trying to be catastrophe thinking here. But, these are the kinds of things that might happen. If it was 16-hour emergency room, that probably wouldn't need to happen, and we would still have a functioning emergency room until 11 or 12 at night. As I was saying, if you need to be hospitalized, it won't be in Sackville with an acute care illness. It would be likely at the Moncton Hospital. And if you did get admitted there, it would not be your local physician here who would be looking after you. You would be looked after by what's called the hit list doctor. So it would be the family docs in Moncton. It's a dark term, but that's what it's called. So patients who get admitted who don't have a family doctor within the Moncton group are assigned a duty physician who happens to be on that day, and that would be the person looking after you. And they're great. I mean, our colleagues in Moncton, we love them. They're awesome. But I know how hard it is for me to look after patients whom I don't know well compared to my patients who I do know well. And I do think there's a difference in quality of care. And it's common for our patients who have been sick in Moncton, or, for example, who have had knee replacements or some sort of surgery, to be transferred back to our hospital for rehabilitation afterwards. That's not going to happen. With a repurposed Sackville Hospital, there will not be beds for that to happen. So that we just have to understand what they're talking about. Because all those beds will be occupied by what's called ALC patients. That's bureaucrat talk for, alternate level of care, I believe, which really means patients who are there not so much because they're sick, but because they can't be at home, and there isn't currently a place for them to be. This is the rationale that was cited in Mr. McGarry's essay on repurposing hospitals. And his rationale for eliminating acute care beds was, and I quote, "How often do patients require inpatient care in the course of any year?" I'm not sure that's philosophically sound. It doesn't. Brain cancer isn't very common either, but we still treat it. Maybe his point was it's not going to be affecting that many people that often. But I still don't know. I don't know. That doesn't strike me as very robust logic, but you can judge for yourself. So the interesting thing is, how did we get to this point? How did we get to the point where people are seriously talking about shutting down the Sackville Memorial Hospital? It's been here for decades and decades. I mean, not just the current incarnation, but the Sackville Hospital has a long history before this current building. The Sackville Memorial Hospital, until the early 1990s, was independent, which meant that it had its own CEO and its own hospital board. It was independent. Certainly it was funded by the government, but it was not run out of Fredericton. It was run out of Sackville. And the board that ran that hospital was made up of people from this area. And if the CEO wanted to cut things that the community members did not want to, they simply would tell the CEO that he or she is invited to find a new job. In other words, the community controlled what happened. It's not like that now. What we've seen is, since the early 1990s, is a steady erosion in local control of healthcare. And that's not just Sackville. That's around New Brunswick, and it's a trend that's been happening across Canada. So, as I understand it, and I stand to be corrected, but this is what I remember, that this process began under the McKenna government with regionalization. What that meant was that Sackville was absorbed into what was called the Southeast Regional Healthcare Authority, which was Moncton and Petitcodiac and Rexton and us. And so Sackville didn't have a board anymore. Sackville had one person which was appointed by town council to sit on the board of Southeast Regional Healthcare. And there was no CEO here. Like the decisions were made in Moncton. And Moncton, as I recall, didn't want that. They didn't want to be sort of stuck with us, because we are, and always have been, a bit of a problem. We tend not to be we don't follow orders very well. But I digress. And then under the Lord government, one of the big changes was that the CEOs of the regions no longer answered to their boards anymore. They answered to the Minister of Health. So the community's control over the direction of their hospitals was even further eroded. So the boards essentially, from my perspective, became advisory boards. Kind of like high school student government. It's fun, but it doesn't make the call. And then it got worse. The boards were politicized, whereby at least half of the appointees to the boards were not made by the community. They were made by Fredericton, by the government. So a lot of Lord supporters got nice seats on the board, as I recall. I remember it. Under the following government, the Graham government, they regionalized further. So there became 2 regions in the province, and they disingenuously said it was not based on language, but everyone knows it was based on language. Vitalité was the francophone areas, Horizon were the anglophone areas of the province. And our input into decision-making was eroded that much further. So there was a whole new level of decision-making. So there was decision-making kind of at the local level in Moncton, St. John, Fredericton. And then there was this super level of decision-making that was at least nominally based in the Miramichi, but in fact was really run out of Fredericton, but it kind of looked good to put it in the Miramichi. So our little independence was eroded that much further. And to the point where really there is virtually no local decision-making that takes place in Sackville, both for administration and for physicians. So our administrators at our hospital, almost everything has to be run by people in Moncton, and oftentimes they have to then run it past people at the higher level yet. Same for us physicians. we don't get to decide much of anything anymore. We don't even have a department anymore. We used to be a Department of Family Medicine in Sackville. Not anymore. Department status wiped out. We're now part of the Department of Family Medicine in Moncton, who are, again, very nice people, but we don't have the same practice pattern. We do a merge, they don't. If you go to our emergency room and you see these nice new security doors that keep you out of our emergency room, has anyone noticed those? They're closed. That wasn't Sackville, right? Those were installed, and I think the nurses hoped that it would be useful at night as a security measure, but because it's Horizon's policy, those doors have to be closed all the time. And we couldn't say, well, we're a small town. We want to be welcoming. We want people to feel comfortable in our emergency room. Sorry. Policy. These doors cost $40,000. And our new latest thing was the drug dispensing machine in our emergency room. It's, I don't know how many, $10,000? I'm not sure. Did any of us want it? No. But it's Horizon policy. Just to give you an idea, I could give you 100 examples like that. I could give you 200 examples like that. We don't make our own decisions anymore. But here's the great thing. If they want to shut us down now, there are very few obstacles. They couldn't do that in 92. It'd be very difficult to there were all these kind of obstacles to doing that because Sackville was independent. Not now. If they close us down, they do it like that. A simple act, and we're gone. So really, it was very effective, if you look at it that way. But what it has meant is a loss of community control over healthcare, which I think is bad. I think it's part of a larger issue, which you could call me rhetorical. I call it a war on rural and small-town New Brunswick. And this is, to me, the irony. Rural New Brunswickers are poorer than urban New Brunswickers. There are fewer resources, such as fewer home care workers. There's no public transit. Rural New Brunswickers tend to be older and require more health care services. They're sicker. And I would argue this is, now that stuff is fact. There's good fact to base that up. This is my opinion, the next thing, which is I feel that rural New Brunswickers have less political power than urban New Brunswickers as well. That's my opinion on that. And another irony to me is that healthcare cuts are decided by urban bureaucrats who really aren't affected by the cuts that they enact. I find that problematic. However, we need to see this as part of an overall political and economic sort of visions that have been dominating things since the late 1980s. This is not something sudden that has happened. This has been a steady process, and that's where we're at. And so anyway, that summary. These cuts have been preceded by the dismantling of local control over healthcare decisions, which started in the early 1990s. And it's interesting, it has not been a partisan issue. This has happened through both liberal and conservative governments. So I certainly do not mean to stand here and point fingers at one party or another. That's not my belief. So, should we give up? Because we could. We could say, New Brunswick is in a hard situation. We have debt and deficit. They just lost another 400 jobs in Sussex, a sister community to us. New Brunswick has terrible financial challenges. Maybe we should let these people do whatever they want. They know best. They certainly know more than most of us do about they do. But maybe we should let it happen. I don't think we should. I think that there are things we can do. And in fact, I think we should do. And this is why I was happy to be asked to speak tonight. I think in order to deal with this, we need to organize, we need to plan, and then we need to execute. And I'd like to propose a three-pronged approach. The first is that we need to be efficient and inclusive and excellent. That's number one, all those three things. Number two is we need to come up with good financial reasons why we should stay open. And the third is we need to flex whatever political muscle we have at our disposal. So I'd like to talk about the first one. Let's be efficient and inclusive and excellent. And this is harder to do right now because so many of our decision-making channels or our decision-making capacity has been taken away from us. As the examples I was giving you, I would hope, illustrate, it's harder for us to do things the way we might like to do. However, I still think we need to think, can we do things cheaper and better? Can we look after people in this community in a less expensive way, but in a way that does a better job? Can we better serve our community? And that's what this ultimately has to be about. It's not about, look, you guys are concerned about jobs. I am too. I'm worried about my job. Like, I don't want to leave Sackville. But this ultimately can't be about jobs, right? It has to be about serving healthcare needs. Our jobs, my job, it's got to be secondary to the bigger picture. So I'm with you. Like, I'm affected too. If this goes south, I'm leaving, right? I don't want to stop doing emergency care. So I'd have to either go to Amherst and work, emerge, or I have to move, period. But ultimately, I do think that serving the community is what has to be the final yardstick with whatever we do. It can't be really about just jobs or whatever. And a last thing is, I remember back in the late 90s, there was this very curious thing called the Tantramar Healthcare Forum. And it met on a approximately monthly basis. And it was a chance for people, like anybody could go, and it was a chance for people to come and talk about healthcare in a public forum. People from the press were there, administrators from the hospital were there, doctors were there, nurses were there, it was a chance for people to come and say, I'm having a problem with this. I think you guys should do this. I think you should stop doing this. And I think it was really important in terms of making healthcare a community-based thing, which is what I really feel it should be. And we don't need Horizon to sanction this. This is something town council could set up. We don't need it to be Horizon sanctioned or Horizon approved. We can get together as a community ourselves. We don't need to have everything done for us or authorized for us. Number two is we need to make some good financial arguments why we should stay in business. I asked Mr. McGarry about specific financial figures. And he initially, he told me that if the Sackville Emergency Room is closed, utterly closed, it will save $1.3 million. Actually, and then I got an email from him this afternoon at just before 4 o'clock, and I wasn't able to integrate it into my PowerPoints. If you add physician costs and everything, nurses, the whole, keeping it open, it would be about $1.5 million per year saving if you close the Sackville Emergency Department. So obviously, having it closed from midnight till 8 would save some money, but not as much. So you're talking total of $1.5 million for our emergency room. But if I don't feel that includes the whole numbers, and I will tell you why. We treat a lot of out-of-province patients at our emergency room. And each one who comes, for example, from Amherst or any of the lovely Mount A, I love the Mount A students, any of the Mount A students who are from out of New Brunswick, each one of those patients, the New Brunswick government bills their home province $300. In fact, according to Mr. McGarry's email, it's $308. So he told me that in the course of last year, the New Brunswick government earned $1.2 million from out-of-province patients seen at our emergency room. At our hospital, at the Sackville Emergency Room, $1.2 million was generated for Fredericton, for the New Brunswick government, by us seeing out-of-province patients. So that's a lot of money. That's a big chunk of that $1.5 million. I see it as, to me, that was pretty good. Also, let's look at it another way. Let's say if we close our emergency room, how many people from here will be then going and seeking care in Amherst? So let's flip the money the other way now. And that money is going out of province. It's not going to Moncton or Sussex or other communities with it. That's money leaving the province. I don't have that figure. I actually, in addition to contacting Mr. McGarry, I sent an email to Mr. Legier, who is a big shot. He's a very important, senior guy in Medicare in the Department of Health. And I got partial answers, but not an answer to that. Even if you shut our emergency room, that we still, as physicians, have to be on call for the patients who are in the hospital, even if they're a long time. I would assume, nobody has told us this, but there would still be lab technicians, x-ray technicians. I don't think those costs are going away. There are other things we need to think about. If all of our patients or some of our patients go to Moncton, are they going to be hiring extra emergency physicians and nurses in Moncton to accommodate? No, they won't. So maybe the wait times will go to 12 hours. What about more ambulance transfers? We know ambulance transfers are expensive. When we work in Emerge, we get to hear when an ambulance transfer goes from Sackville to Moncton, the dispatchers move all the ambulances around to cover up. It's really quite interesting. It's like three-dimensional chess. And sometimes they have a hard time actually covering it. So if there are more transfers going to Moncton with a closed emergency room in Sackville, does that mean they hire another ambulance crew? I don't know. I haven't been able to get that answer. In fact, I contacted Ambulance New Brunswick and was told I would have to fill out a request for information form. I'm serious. This was last week. It was on Thursday. That's what I was told. This is a democracy. This is a democratic system we're talking about, folks. So a paramedic who shall remain nameless told me that he was told that a new ambulance crew, which means an extra ambulance to use and a set of 2 paramedics for a year, is $900,000. I can't verify that as being true. That's the best information I've gotten so far. So let's add up. Now we're well past our $1.5 million. What if a couple of docs leave Sackville? Big deal. We're all replaceable, right? But let's look at it economically. The tax money, we are well paid. I am very lucky to have the job that I have. But a quarter of our pay goes directly back to the Nova Scotia government, or New Brunswick government, in taxes. And another quarter goes to the federal government, but that's separate. A quarter of what we make goes to Fredericton. So that's another nice income as well for New Brunswick. If we lose some docs, more people presumably are going to be going to Amherst for family doctors. Again, money just leaving the province. So this is different for our little hospital than it is for other small hospitals in New Brunswick. And nobody's made that business case. You never hear that. It's never discussed. This is just other stuff. If we lose some docs, less rent for the health clinic, loss of office staff jobs. What would be the effect on Mount Allison? I don't know. I'm not sure if that's a concern for them. We certainly see lots of Mount Allison students, and I personally, it's one of my favorite parts of the job. Not so much at 3 in the morning. Those 3 in the morning patients will be ambulanced up to Moncton. My daughter is going to be going to college next year. She's probably going to be going to a place where they have access to an emergency room. If they didn't, that might be part of my consideration as a parent. I wonder how many Mount A parents will be as anxious to send their child to this lovely little town without, I don't know. I don't have data to back this up. I just wonder. What will be the effects on our town in terms of economic development? Will the foundation still raise $100,000 a year? I don't think so. But they do it for patients. They do, but are they going to do it if all their patients are in Moncton? I don't know. I mean, if I was a big-time donor to the foundation, which I'm not, but if I and God bless them, I thank you to all the donors and thank you to the foundation. If I was a donor giving $2,000 or $3,000 or more to the hospital foundation each year, would I be as happy to do that if the hospital had been repurposed? I might repurpose my gift to something else. So, I mean, again, that $100,000, to me, that should be part of the overall way. You know, you cost $1.5 to keep an emergency room open. Well, there's another $100,000. The third thing is, I think we should be flexing our political muscle. So number one, I think we should make it clear to our political representatives that they be held accountable. In other words, it's nothing personal. This is business. But if you can't keep our things open that we need, we don't need you. We need someone else. It's nothing. It's not personal. It's just that's what we need. This is what we need. If we consider this essential as a community, then our representatives need to think of it as essential to their job security, I think. As a second point, I think we need to work together to communicate our message to the government. And I'm not pointing fingers at this particular government, because I don't think this is new, but Mr. McGarry, the head of Horizon, who's a very capable guy, has a very hard time getting as far as from what I gather, has a hard time getting the ear of our Minister of Health. That's disgraceful. And I think it probably is true for the Vitalité CEOs as well. If I was Minister of Health, I'd have those guys on speed dial. I'd talk to them every day. So in other words, I think we need to use all the connections we have, people who are well connected with government in our communities, to talk to them and say, listen, you need to slow down when you talk about closing our hospitals. There are big impacts here. We don't want this. And finally, I think from the foundation point of view, I think if I were presenting $100,000 to Horizon, I would say, here's your $100,000. What can we get for this $100,000? Do we have any assurance that our hospital still will be open next year? I can assure you that the nice heart monitors that the foundation's money has raised, and which we use every day, and they're wonderful, if we're repurposed, those monitors will be taken up to Moncton or to St. John or wherever. And I'm trying to think of the right word. If the hospital's repurposed, those things would be re-geographied. Would that be a nice sort of? It's better than stolen. Like repurposed is better than closed. Now all this has been thrown into a tizzy as of Friday. If you read the papers on Friday, you saw there was an article about Premier Gallant who said, hey, hospital closures are off the table. And then this is Saturday's paper. And our Minister of Health said that the hospital closures are off the table. And why? Because the average New Brunswicker didn't quite grasp proposed hospital changes. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we misunderstood. It was our fault. Mind-blowing. That's the way to backtrack, right? If you sort of like, geez, I don't think we did the right thing, I'm going to say, those guys just misunderstood. That's why we're not doing it. So, in conclusion, I feel that even if we're lucky, if we are not going to be closing or being repurposed, I think we need to understand that the days when we thought that the people in charge were going to look out for us are gone. The people in charge want to close our little hospital. Make no mistakes about that. Our CEO of Horizon wants to close our hospital. Big shots in the Department of Health want to close our hospital. So I think my purpose was to say, this is what's happening, decide what we want. But I do feel we have hope and we have optimism, and we should not accept that just because we're small that we should be marginalized. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dysat, for that presentation. The podium is open for anybody that wants to come up and address the public and comments and support for the community hospital. Sandy Burnett. Oh. Okay, go ahead.
Is it okay?
Yep. State your name and...
I'm a little shorter. My name's Lori-Ann Ronis. Thank you, Allison, for that. I also wanted to let you know that I think you've seen more of most of us than perhaps we all care to, so I thought you did overall excellently. So anyway, what's that? He did. It was all good. So my name is Lori-Ann Ronis, and I've lived here since 2002. And my parents just moved here about a year ago. And I actually came here with a different impression tonight. I thought that this was an engagement.
Speak into the mic.
I'm trying. I can speak louder.
Go ahead.
So I came here under the impression that this was an engagement session. And one thing that I was confused about is if the budget by the province is supposed to be funneled down at the beginning of February. I don't understand how input was supposed to make it into that budget. What I've now since realized is that this is not a community engagement meeting. This was more or less, an update for us, which I welcome and I think is important. I am glad to see that the MLA is here, which was great because I did go to your office today to see if you were going to be here. However, where is other representation from Horizon Health, from the Office of the Department of Health, in order to explain themselves and to explain how closures or a reduction of services is actually going to be replaced? I do agree that the emergency rooms aren't always used for emergency purposes, but what now are the alternatives? Because my parents are 70. I can't even drive at night. They for sure can't. Where are people going to go? We've already seen that there would be discussion to go to Amherst or other places. Or if you have sick kids, are you then going to bundle them into the car in order to go to Moncton, or to go to Amherst? So I am very concerned about that. I do think that we do need to be proactive for healthcare. I also think that we need to expand conventional approaches to healthcare and look at wellness in terms of a holistic approach to healthcare and making sure that we have access to physicians but also tertiary healthcare into the future. And I would like to just put my name in that if there is a movement, a community and a collective movement to move forward, then I would like to, volunteer, and I hope to see, other people there moving into the future. So hopefully we'll continue to be Sackville strong and do what we need to do. Thank you.
Sandy, give me just a second. Lori-Ann, I can assure you that everybody was notified of this meeting. Everybody was called to be here, and it's a public meeting. And if they're not here, I can't answer that other than that.
And it was not less of a criticism as
No.
opposed to just a statement that it is incumbent upon our political leaders beyond the town to
Okay.
doing that. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Sandy Burnett, and about a year and a half ago, I was privileged to be asked by the Tantramar Heritage Trust to write a history of healthcare in Tantramar. which essentially was a history of how we came to the point of building and growing the Sackville Memorial Hospital as a community project, as a community endeavor, and as a community service. The history that Alison has given us this evening of what happened in the last 25 years when local control was ceded to provincial control for quite valid reasons, I must say, at the time. For one thing, we really couldn't afford to keep the place going on our own. And for another, it did provide us with excellent access to excellent services that were not otherwise readily available, or not as readily available. So, there is an important degree of fairness that has to be maintained in this. But the fact is that we did lose control, and we have continued to lose control more and more. My study of the history of what's gone on totally confirms what you've been told tonight. That said, we're faced as well with a really, we're told, and I have no reason not to believe it, serious financial crisis in this province, and somehow or other, the books have to be at least brought to sort of a little further away from the brink of bankruptcy than they currently appear to be. We have been told in the media not only that perhaps 6 or 10 hospitals will be closed, but also in some commentaries that this is just one of a number of choices that are being offered. Other possibilities: toll highways, an increase to the HST, other kinds of cuts here and there. Well, each of us will have his or her own opinion as to which of those are good, which of those are bad. Frankly, I would far sooner put a toonie in a toll box each way up to Moncton and back each time I have to do it than to lose our hospital. It's a cheap price, but if everybody is doing that, it's going to generate a whole lot of money along every 4-lane highway in this province. I'd like to see what the arithmetic on that would be before final decisions are taken. The questions of how healthcare can best be delivered are frankly beyond my professional know-how to really make a good judgment on. However, it seems to me that if there are priorities to be met in terms of keeping the hospital here in some reduced or partial role, we need to be very serious about having a voice in which of those priorities are the ones that serve our needs and our preferences as opposed to the ones that simply look good on a balance sheet. I would suggest, from my point of view once again, that a functioning emergency room is a very important thing. In a town with some 2,000 students, I think that emergency room doctors would confirm that when they come to emerge, it is usually after midnight rather than at 2 in the afternoon. Therefore, closing emerge from midnight to 6 in the morning doesn't seem to me like a really hot idea. Another, it would seem to me, very important element is that we retain the X-ray and lab services that we have here, both to support emergency medicine and to support the practice of family doctors, who quite frequently, as everyone here knows, will send us over for some blood work or some other kind of testing. We don't want to have to go to Moncton to have that done either, do we? The question of acute care is a little more dicey because I think that there are some good arguments for not doing a great deal of intensive or acute hospital care in a place like this if it can be delivered well within a half-hour's drive of here. That may be a negotiable point, or not, depending on your point of view. But it seems to me that convalescent and recuperative care probably makes a whole lot more sense close to home than it does half an hour or 45 minutes away. My father, some 25 years ago this spring, was sent for acute care to Moncton, where I must say, in all fairness, he was, from my point of view, rather neglected until they finally said, well, he might as well go back to Sackville, by which time it was too late, and what was left was about 10 days of palliative care before he left us. But I was glad that he was at least close by for that and not dying alone in a large hospital away from home. The human element of illness and recovery and wellness is something that mustn't be lost in the midst of this debate. Those, I think, are my top priorities. Emergency, lab and x-ray, and not continuing acute care, but good recuperative and convalescent care. Yours may be quite different, but those are mine. For the other things, I think that there is also a need, and this has been a hobby horse of mine for a number of years, as some members of council will recall, is that we need very much to turn to a system of health care where we put more emphasis on wellness and prevention and less on waiting until we are deathly ill before we pay any attention to it. There are lots of functioning examples of this in other places, in other countries, and the bottom line is that when healthy living, active living, good diet, and sound medically based fitness and wellness counseling are provided through a community health center or small local hospital, that the result is a far lower rate of chronic illness, especially among aging people, and a far higher level of health till the end of life. And the bottom line of that is that it saves an enormous amount of money. There was a study done some years ago in British Columbia where it was suggested that $10 million invested in the healthcare system, I think it was for the greater Vancouver area, but I'm a little shaky on the specifics of this, but I remember the numbers. A $10 million investment in primary and preventive health care would result in a $200 million reduction in annual costs. That's not a bad return on investment. And I think that it is high time, and I know there are signs that people are starting to think and talk this way in New Brunswick as well. I hear bits and pieces of it here and there, and I hope that it continues. But I think that this is one of the things that a community-based initiative from the town of Sackville, for example, could move very effectively to help introduce. It would take some time. It would be a matter of a few years before the full benefits would be realized. But I think that it's something that we could do, and it's something I would be very happy to see built into our program of proactive strategy. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Marilyn McDonald. I don't work in the healthcare system. I work in the education system. I'm an EA at Salem Elementary. At Salem, we have a few emergencies once in a while. It happens. We need our ambulance. We need our hospital. Most importantly, the message that I want to bring is that we saw Dorchester School almost shut down. Their community rallied. They got together. We have in this town all kinds of talent, wonderful and brilliant minds. I'm praying that we will come together as a community and save our hospital. I really believe that everybody who came out here tonight is more than willing to step up and do something. I'm one of them. If we all get behind each other, and I'd like to hold up the sign. It says no more cuts. I want cuts. I want cuts to the people who are in charge, who are making the big dollars, who want to take things from us. I pay my taxes. I deserve everything. You deserve everything that you pay your taxes for. We don't deserve to have our hospital cut, our education cut. Children are our most valuable resource. The other thing I'd like to bring to your attention is we are the only province in Canada without advanced care paramedics. And as Dr. Allison told you that if you have a heart attack, your chances of making it to hospital in Moncton, which is not 30 minutes away, it's about 45 minutes away. The airport's 30 minutes away. The chances are less if you do not have an advanced care paramedic on board, because those people are trained to give drugs that will help you get to the hospital. And I'm not saying that our PCPs don't do a great job. They are awesome and well trained. But we also have advanced care paramedics who are trained in this province who cannot do their job. Sorry, I should have shut that off. But anyway, my main message is if we come together as a community, if we work together, we will save our hospital. We are a community. We care about our people, everybody here. And I hope that the government is listening, because I agree with Dr. Allison that if you're not going to do your job, if you're not going to do what you're being paid for, because we're paying their salaries. It's us. And unless we stand up and demand what we are paying for, they're going to do whatever they want. And I will bring up that our local 7425 had the Minister of Education removed and replaced. So I'm here to tell you that if we make enough noise, if we put the proper people together with a good plan, like Dr. Allison suggested, we can do this. So are you with me?
Can everyone hear me? My name is Dylan Willieberry. I'm the president of the Mount Allison Students' Union, and I was born and raised in Sackville, New Brunswick. I was actually born in that hospital, so it's a nice little connection there. I'm here to tell you that whatever initiative comes forward out of tonight, you have the unequivocal support of Mount Allison students. Thank you. There are many groups in Sackville that depend on that hospital, and one of them is the Mount Allison students. I'm here to share with you two stories of students whose lives and vision were saved by that hospital. Last year, one of my friends got an eye infection. They were going to wait to see their family doctor and go back home to Montreal over the Thanksgiving break. But because that hospital was there and it was convenient for them, they chose to see that doctor or go to the hospital in the emergency room and get help right away. The eye infection would have taken their vision if they didn't get the antibiotics right away. I'd like to thank Dr. Allison and the rest of the Mount Allison, or the rest of the Sackville doctors for helping a lot of students out at those 3 o'clock in the morning visits. One of my friends, though, ended up in the hospital at 1 o'clock in the morning, and it wasn't because they consumed too much alcohol. It was because they were studying, and someone brought a baked good with a nut in it. They're deathly allergic to nuts. Luckily, they had their EpiPen, and someone was able to just drive them to the emergency room. If they had to go to Moncton, they might not have made it, point blank. And it's not just Mount Allison students who have deathly nut allergies. Salem students, Marshview students, Tanchmar students. It's really disconcerting to see that they're looking at cutting emergency services, because the nature of an emergency is it's not planned. So, if you have an allergy, just stay away from nuts at night. It's ridiculous. Mr. LeBlanc, I understand that the government needs to make hard choices, but this hospital, is not one of them. Our community's health should not be one of them. So whatever happens after tonight, I just want to say again, you guys got the students on your side. Let's stand together and let's save our hospital. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that want to come? Okay, Bernard.
Hello, my name is Jenna McKinnon, and I'm also a student at Mount Allison University. I'm the president of a club on campus that supplies volunteers to the Memorial Hospital, and I'm a fourth year, so we've been doing it for the past 4 years, or I've been a part of it the past 4 years. So myself and one of my other colleagues, the other students that volunteers there as well and does a lot of the organization with the hospital, we collaborated and just wrote a short memo that I'm going to read to you guys that just to show our support for the community. So as students, we choose our campus based on a number of different factors: academia, athletics, extracurriculars. But one of the most important characteristics of a student's choice of post-secondary education is the community. To me, and I'm sure a lot of anxious mothers and fathers raising 18-year-olds eagerly awaiting to leave the nest, there is nothing more integral in choosing the school's community than the presence of healthcare institutions such as Sackville Memorial Hospital. While this is a small institution, it is important for us to recognize how essential it is in our community and why we must work to keep it thriving. Although the general students of Mount Allison are also of my concern, the community as a whole is one of the reasons why I am so happy to call Sackville my second home. Since a large portion of the Sackville community is aging, being close to a hospital facility is high on their list of priorities, so that makes it high on my list of priorities. Our school sends volunteers to the hospital weekly, and it's not just my group, there's other groups on campus. And we do it because we genuinely care about the overall well-being and health of our community members. The university and their students would not be anything without the support of our community members, so supporting the community on this matter is definitely of the utmost importance. So thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Doug Key. I'm a retired veterinary virologist who worked at several universities, including on the campus of Mount Allison many years ago. That was my wife's and my introduction to Sackville back in the 1970s. We chose to return here to retire in 2008. And a big reason for that was the community's access to care for our future as we aged. One concern I had was the Times transcript reported this morning that 90-some beds is what I recall. Maybe I'm incorrect on that, but a significant number of beds were closed in Edmundston without warning. The physicians were concerned, both in Grand Falls and in Edmundston, that the closure of these beds, the patients who were in them were moved to long-term care. However, the future situation in Edmundston was not clear because there was no concrete evidence of improvement in home care that would prevent the situation of having more of these patients. As well, the emergency doctors, and the doctors here might clarify this, but they said it was going to impede their ability to transfer patients because they would not be able to stabilize them, did not have the beds to stabilize them before they transferred them to Fredericton or elsewhere. So, the Vitalité made this move in a clear political environment that's certainly against it, but they went ahead and did it. So my concern is that certainly Vitalité did not show any concern for the current political environment, as well as the doctors, as was indicated to us, didn't have any say in what went on. So I'm thinking that, what is different between Vitalité and Horizon at the top? I don't know. Maybe nothing. And that is of great concern. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, and Dr. Dysart, you did a fantastic overview of what the Sackville Hospital is all about. I want to tell you something. I became your MLA in last September 14th, and I'm proud to be your MLA for this area. And what I have done ever since is try to make sure that we create a lot of jobs here and we protect everything that we have. And I can tell you that the Sackville Memorial Hospital is a key to this area. And it is a key to my riding, which is one of the biggest ridings that we have in the province of New Brunswick. Thank you. Thank you. So what it means is the hospital is a key building and a key service area for my riding of Memramcook, for the riding here, because a lot of people use this hospital because it's faster, quicker, you get good service, you come in, you're served well, and you don't have to wait a long time, and you got good doctors, good medical staff, and everything that is there is super. And the hospital itself, is a top-notch hospital for rural areas. I'm very impressed. And we visited, when I heard that the strategic review would take place across in New Brunswick, as our finances are bad in this province, as you know, and I will talk to you about that a little bit. But as we went here, and I realized that maybe the hospital could be affected or so. So immediately, I went to the Minister of Health and told him, you have to come down. You have to come down and meet with the people down here to see what type of hospital they have and how well it's working, and the foundation, what it's doing for this area and for all the people that are living here. And he came down. And we met with the foundation members here, and we viewed the whole hospital. Because the hospital only does day surgery. It brings in specialists also from various areas. And, and it's quick and fast. And we could service a lot more people if this was more, designed for it. So when he saw it and we viewed the whole thing and went around and everything, and the foundation and everything, I knew, that he had seen what type of top-notch hospital it was. Then after that, during the summer, every time that I went to Fredericton, every time that I went to caucus meeting, the hospital was on the subject. I made sure that the hospital would stay open. We fought for that. And I'm going to tell you, it was there, and I did it because I met also with Andy Marr. And we looked at various possibilities, the president of the foundation, of how can we enhance the hospital, and so on. So we met twice, and all the recommendation, the stats that he has given me, has gone in. to the government as well. More than that, I attended a meeting because this hospital is administered by New Horizon. Now, they're a Crown Corporation, as you know. Okay? They do their own stuff, and they geared a lot. You know, they do all the English hospital across New Brunswick. It's a big, huge things. And I attended that meeting, that we had a special meeting with the health authority, and I explained to them as well that the hospital had open arm here, and we could do more. So all these went through the hospital, and we kept on putting it on for so. So, as you know, Premier Gallant has made it very clear to protect health care and education in the budget. He made it very clear. He said that the hospital would be, he said health care would be protected and education would be protected. Now, the reason why I'm coming here tonight is to make sure that you understand that the province here is facing substantially financial problem that has to be addressed. And if you go on the choices that the government is making or asking people to make, to look at what has to be done, I don't want to be long. I want to just tell you the situation that we're in. So, our main goal is job creation and getting our finances in order. Improving services for family as well. We want to make sure of that. If the province does not get its finances in order, decision may be forced upon us. Ministers involved in a similar exercise undertaken in Saskatchewan in the early 1990s have since acknowledged their decisions were made in New York and Toronto rather than the provincial capital. Just to tell you that if we don't take decision right now to put our finances where it should be, we have a deficit in this province. We make a deficit each year. And we have a debt of 685. We have a debt of $12.5 billion. That's our debt. We spend $400 million more than we receive fund for. So what do we have to do? We have to borrow the money. We spend more than the revenue brings in. That is the true story out there. So what has happened is the government said it's got to be addressed one way or the other. So we went across the province. We had an engagement process. We came here. We went to the arena some time ago, and we've been having meetings. We had about it was launched in January 2015, 14 public dialogue meetings, stakeholders, group hosted their own session, and more than 1,200 people attended our dialogue session all across the province. We're continuing to do it. Now, some of them will say the budget is made up. The budget is, the formality has been made. There's no question about it, but we're still making those meetings, and the fine print will be put in usually at the last 2 or 3 days of these sessions before it goes for budget. So, that being said, the current situation, demographic changes, is the deficit at the end of 2013-2014 was roughly $498 million. And in 2015-2016, New Brunswick has not been in a surplus position since 2007. Okay. So, our debt has increased significantly over the past decade as the cost of servicing the debt. Just for servicing the debt, the $12.5 billion costs us $685 million a year. That's what it's costing us. So, what have we done? This strategic project, announced choices. We went to the government immediately. Some of the choices we had to make, we made them right quick. Premier Gallant's naming his smallest cabinets in 50 years, saving there. Continuing to freeze MLA salary has been freezed. They've been freezed for 8 years. Reducing the number of deputy ministers. We've reduced them. Premier Gallant's taking a 15% cut on his own salary. Freezing the 2014-15 funding level of officers of the Legislative Assembly. So if we had 8 of them, freeze. Centralizing some government services. We did that automatically. All to say that all these has saved already $115 million. And we're continuing. So some of the choices that are out there, you can go to the website, you can take a look at it, and you can see what has to be done in order. Some of it, and if we go, some people will tell you, tolls. Put tolls on the highway. And they tell us all that. We did some meetings. I went to a couple of meetings in the last couple of days. And here's what they said. Top choices. Protect healthcare. Protect education. This has been all around this province. And the Premier has said that that would be done. Now, it's not to say that we're going to be looking to make efficiencies. And, you know, the stories out there, as Dr. Dysart was saying, is that, you know, the hospital here has to be kept open. It is a key area for everyone of our riding and everyone down here. And, you know, I'm glad that you're all grouping up together here. But as you were saying, you know, healthcare will be protected. Now, you're going to say, for me to say that the hospital is protected, it seems that way. There's no question about that. And secondly, what we have to do also is, I know there is, you know, we want to keep all features of the hospital as well, what it provides to each area. Okay? So we'll, you know, definitely will work with that. Now, some of we're doing administrative efficiencies also. We're going to try to find anything there, reshaping the civil service, consolidate customer contact services, non-medical laboratory services also. Some of them will be grouped up, reducing visitors' information centers at various areas, and also tolls. But tolls, when you come to tolls, people will tell you, okay, where do you put them? So is it okay to put them at the border here between Sackville and Amherst?
Yeah. Of course. Like, who decided that?
Okay. All right. As a lot of people will tell us, then if we said we put him in Memram Cook, in between Sackville and Thing, a lot of people say, don't put him there. Why are you putting them there? We're going to be, I'm using that highway every day, so it's $2 every day. So this is the case about tolls. But a lot of people want them. So we'll see what the budget will bring in. You know, some other people told us about HST. Now HST is popular. They're saying, bring it up. So with that said, well, HST would bring in roughly about $300 million if you brought it up by 2%. By 2. So it's 13 now, but it would be 15. But if it brings that, then roughly what we've got to do is protect also the people that have, you know, that can't afford that 2% more. Because the salary is not there to cover that. So some of that money would have a portion of that also would have to go back for the people in a credit type. So it would not be a full gain. But that is in there as well. And if you go to the website, it's all there. Also, they're saying corporate tax from 12 to 14%. That is in there as well. And there's lots of them. To increase also some most people told us, increase the diesel tax. Well, the diesel right now is 21.5 cents. Some other people told us go with gas. Gas is cheaper now. As you know, the barrel is only worth 20, but I can't figure out how come it doesn't go faster down. You know, it stayed there. But we have no way. The market for gas is in New York. That's where it's decided. The brokers of New York that decides, you know, the fuel that's coming down and being shifted. That's how the stock market does that. So that said, you know, I know that I was listening to it, trying to take a few notes there. I know that Horizons also, John McGarry, he does a fantastic job for the money he has. He has to cut because it's one big, huge, most of health and education is 60% of the budget. Okay? And as he said, but I respect his opinion and what he wants to do. He has to operate a big, huge budget. But he is not a public servant. He is an independent CEO for Health Authority. So I respect that. And also, but I think if you had heard that what Mr. Boudreau has said also, that the budget of health would not be, he said it very clearly, would not be balanced on the hospital, the small hospital, budget. So in other words, you can't balance the health budget in cutting on rural hospital. Okay, that's what Mr. Boudreau has said very recently in a quote like that. So I'm very confident here that, your hospital will, have some, will be protected. And I'm confident that you will see in the budget. And then if that doesn't happen, because the budget comes in very quickly. But if you want to send letters, you can. I will support you. I will fight for you. And I'm doing it all the time. And that's my message to you, unless you have further questions on that. Some of it I can answer, some I can't, because I'm not a minister. I'm just your MLA, a fighting man for your common people here and for the service that you've acquired over the years and that we want to keep. No question asked. So on that, Mr. Mayor, I'll finish. And I want to thank you all for being here. Support your cause, be good, and have a good night.
I didn't come prepared this evening because I simply came here for an informational session. So thank you very much, Dr. Dysart, for providing us with that information. Mayor and Town...
Name.
What?
Name, please, so people want to... Sorry.
My name is Susan Kosh. I just gotta... Yeah. Okay. I've lived in Sackville for 6 years. And I'm proud to be a Sackvillian now. But Mayor and Town Council, thank you for having us here this evening. I sat here this evening and listened to a lot of information. And a lot of that information had to do with dollars, budget, and that's about it. So, as a sales professional, I'm a Canadian certified sales professional, and I would love to be a part of your team. Because at the end of the day, you need a plan, a great proposal, and the tools to be part of that proposal. So I'm hoping that Mr. LeBlanc will provide us with those tools to basically give us the information on what the criteria is for them to make the final decision on the Sackville Hospital. And I think that the sales pitch to the government can't be about how happy our hospital is, how wonderful everybody is, how welcoming everybody is, as great as that is. I know it's a beautiful hospital. But at the end of the day, we can't sell based on value. We need to sell based on price. And that's not what we're supposed to do in the real world, but unfortunately, that's what we're going to have to do as a community. So I think that Dr. Dysart and a team of us should come together and sell based on price. And I'm hoping that Mr. LeBlanc will help us do that. Thank you.
Good evening, friends. My name is Audrey Hicks, and I just wanted to kindly remind Mr. LeBlanc that I represented the hospital auxiliary the day that you were here to your meeting, along with the foundation. Thank you. Also, I've been around a little longer than Allison. I've been part of the hospital corridors for 40 years. And I must say, I enjoy retirement, but you know, as a nurse, you miss it. You miss the patients that you care for. I just wanted to pick up on a point from Allison about the possibility of pneumonias. Having to go to Moncton to be in a hospital bed with pneumonia? What are we thinking, and where are we going with a decision like that? Also, we hear quite often in the newspapers, or we read, where elective surgeries are canceled because there is no bed. God bless the people that are holding up those beds. They're someone's mother and father. In 1988, we opened a 55-bed hospital, and I believe in 1995, about 7 years later, we lost 30 beds closed. My suggestion, and I hope Mr. LeBlanc will make a note of this, that those beds in our hospital, which I think probably would be around 30, if I do the math correctly, could be used for nursing home beds. I know someone might say, well, I don't want my mother or dad in Sackville if I have to travel from Moncton to visit. But wouldn't it be better if you flipped the coin and said, well, somebody is having their necessary surgery today. Our beds could be utilized. I am sure the hospital foundation and our auxiliary would be more than happy to furnish beds to put in those empty rooms and fill them with those patients that do need the care. They absolutely, as a senior, yes, they do need care. And we could provide that. Thank you.
It's anybody else? If not, Dr. Dysart, would you like to end with any comment and sum up anything? Well, I never saw you scratch your head, so if you want to.
Well, no, except to thank you. No, I'm happy I got through it. Thank you.
Okay. So that being said, I want to thank Dr. Dysart for the presentation and all the comments from the people in our town and showing the support for our Memorial Hospital and here in Sackville. And I'm sure that there was notes being taken by the government people and Bernard, and I think that it'll move forward, and I'm sure that there'll be a group in that together, and Dr. Dysart, we can move it ahead and see what we can do to form that group and see how that's going to be, see how it's going to happen. We are concerned. There's everybody that is at this table up front echoes all those comments that were made here tonight. We are very concerned with our hospital in town. Being one of 3 or 4 economic drivers in our town, as municipal leaders, we are responsible for that, and we want to make sure that economic drive is there. Also, the health care and the protection of the citizens of the town of Sackville are very important to this mayor and everybody on this council and staff. And we will thank everybody again for coming tonight and sharing their comments with us, past history of the hospital. And we know this hospital is worth saving. And for whatever time I have left in this chair, this mayor will go forward and try to protect that hospital and keep it going as it is going today, and hopefully improve that too. So that being said, I might also mention that tonight's meeting is recorded, and it's being recorded, and you can find it on our website. Look on the town website, and that recording will be there if you want any comments or hear any comments by the people that present. Ladies and gentlemen, this is probably the largest group that I've ever talked to in this council chambers. I wish this was like every council night, but it's not. Some nights we don't have too many people. But that just shows this mayor the importance of this particular topic, and thank you again for coming out. So thank you.